It's time to have your say. Welcome back to the Q&A, answering your questions in the wrestling community. It's time for another episode of AskSCW. I'm going to be answering your questions on WWE, AEW, and much, much more straight after this. Some great questions and topics will be discussed on today's video as always, but just before I dive into the questions, if you want to be involved on the next Q&A, all you've got to do is leave a question in the comments below, leave hashtag AskSCW, or you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. All should be coming up on your screen right about now. But without further ado, let's get on with our first question this week, which comes from Dylan at Ketchum asking, Kyle O'Reilly to AEW confirmed? Yeah, I think it's nailed on personally. His contract is due to run out in December. He's not signed with WWE once again, which seems to be a reoccurring thing with a lot of talents right now. So if I had to lay my money on it, had to predict what I think is going to happen, I don't think he's going to be sticking in a tag team with Von Wagner. Potentially, I suppose if he wants to re-sign with WWE, he could go to Raw SmackDown, but I think more than likely he's going to go and join his buddies from the Undisputed Era, Adam Cole and Bobby Fish, in All Elite Wrestling. The question would be, would they reunite that faction over there? There has been teasers saying the words Undisputed with Adam Cole a couple of times in the last couple of weeks, and as well, have you noticed Adam Cole and Bobby Fish hugged the other week? They've been doing each other favours, if you want. Dirty work. Bobby Fish going in matches with Jungle Boy on Adam Cole's behalf, and with the fallout as well of Full Gear going on also with the Young Bucks, have they turned babyface? They kind of acknowledged the apology, which meant something from Hangman Adam Page. Love that detail of storyline. Makes you realise as well that Rampage is not worth missing. You've got to watch it each and every week to know every bit of minor detail going into these shows, and yeah, absolutely love the way that's played out. But looking to the storyline narrative with that, to this question here, could we get Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks of the Elite breaking away from Adam Cole at some point to take on the Undisputed Era? I certainly would love to see it. I think it'd be a very fun storyline if it was to play that way, because Kenny could go to being babyface after this, maybe has friction with the Young Bucks. We're not quite sure what's going to go down, but why wasn't Adam Cole out there as well to help Kenny Omega retain that championship? The finger point is going to happen. Hopefully not a finger point of doom anyway, but I certainly could see Bobby Fish still being around with Adam Cole, and if Kyle O'Reilly comes in, I definitely could see a breakaway faction going on there, and it could even be like a Wednesday night war in and amongst All Elite Wrestling, which I think would be a fascinating storyline if they wanted to take down that line and that angle, which they certainly could do without mentioning the keywords of NXT and what, you know, that sort of style. They can try and do it like an Invasion Outsider angle, but this could have been the plan with Adam Cole coming in all along. I think it'd be a very fascinating way if it was to go down that way, and I think Kyle O'Reilly, there's many great dream matches he can have in and amongst with the AEW roster. I needn't go through the names, I'm sure you've got a few of them flying at the screen at me already, and why not bring in Kyle O'Reilly just to go and answer that open challenge immediately for the TNT Championship? Seems to be a lot of way that people are coming in, including Jay Lethal, who I'll be talking about more later in this video. Next question comes from Jamie Holmes asking, who do you think the last member of the SmackDown women's team will be at Survivor Series? He thinks Sonya Deville will add herself to the team, or something will happen to get Naomi on the team, who's been feuding with Sonya Deville lately. I certainly can see an argument for both of those being on the team. Let's just quickly talk about Aliyah first, by the way. She won the match on SmackDown, the one that got the momentum going into Survivor Series. If anything, she'd earned her place on the team, winning that 6-women tag team match there by pinning Natalya. Natalya should have been the one dropped from the team, right? But hey, she's been pulled from the team. I'm guessing this is WWE reacting to social media kind of questioning why she was put in the match, but I kind of accepted that she was there, but it is what it is, I guess. But who is going to replace it is the big question. Like you say, Sonya Deville, she has been gearing up for an in-ring return, and she wants to strengthen the team and wants to make it as strong as possible. In her head, surely she would think that she would deserve more of a place on the team than anybody else, certainly more than Naomi. Maybe those who say if Naomi was to win a match that was sort of very, very difficult, maybe that would get her onto the Survivor Series team. My personal feeling on that, though, is that it doesn't make sense for Naomi to be that member. Sonya Deville has been making sure that she's been losing matches even when she's won them of late, so she doesn't think that Naomi's good enough for the SmackDown Survivor Series team, doesn't think she's good enough to be on SmackDown in general, so I would expect it to be potentially somebody else. Toni Storm is another name that you could mention. I think a few people were crying out for her to be on the team to begin with. She's come out and called out Charlotte Flair. If she has a losing effort on SmackDown and takes Charlotte to her limit, perhaps Sonya Deville will say, look, you lost this match, but you took the Queen, our champion, to the limit. You deserve to be on that Survivor Series match. Or they could build for a title match after Survivor Series, and Toni Storm, in WWE's terms by merit, gets that position. So there are a number of people that could be in line for this opportunity. Xia Li perhaps debuting at Survivor Series is another potential one, but to give a prediction on what I actually think it will be, it's hard really to say because WWE are changing so much coming into Survivor Series even after making these announcements, so anything you could predict, it could always change again before the pay-per-view. But I'm going to say Toni Storm just to give us a name out there, but I do think your suggestions, potentially of Sonya Deville or Naomi in the spot there, depending on how they want to work around it, could be interesting, particularly the Sonya Deville one. But there was another potential shout out that I'm going to give now with our next question, which comes from Supersonic X asking, how would I book Asuka's return to the ring? Join the SmackDown women's team at Survivor Series, or interfere in the Charlotte vs Becky match in that pay-per-view, or return at the Royal Rumble at the number 30. You might just be onto something there with Asuka being brought back for the SmackDown Women's Survivor Series team. That would make a lot of sense because talk about strengthening your team up. A multi-time women's champion on both Raw and SmackDown in the past. Asuka would add a lot of depth to that Survivor Series team and would put up quite a bit of favour on SmackDown potentially getting the win at Survivor Series. I must admit, at this particular moment, I can't see anything other than a Raw victory looking at the Women's Survivor Series team. So Asuka, that could be a very interesting conversation and a great shout should she come back to be in that role. I wouldn't put her anywhere near Charlotte versus Becky if I'm being brutally honest, because that feud is dealing with itself at the minute, which is a bit of a weird one. I don't think it needs anyone else interacting with it, and to be honest really with that one, yeah, I'd keep Asuka fairly away from it. But the Royal Rumble is another shout, because if she's not good to go for next Sunday at the Barclays Centre, the Royal Rumble would be a natural place to bring Asuka back. It's a great place for surprises and returns, so Asuka would be a great fit in this role. I still, personally, if Bayley is good to go, I would bring her back as the late spot in the Rumble for me, because I would want Bayley to win the Royal Rumble. For Asuka, for me, I think that she would do probably the best work coming in early in the Rumble. I'd have her as like the number 2 entrant and be like the journey person through that Royal Rumble, because she could be in there for like 30, 40, 45 minutes and show she's good to go once again and give her a really good showing, put some real strength on her name once again, and then push her to a strong storyline heading into WrestleMania. So that's one of the 2 things I would do for Asuka being brought back. If she can come back for next Sunday, then why not throw her on that Survivor Series team for SmackDown? But if I'm not mistaken, I'm sure she has been assigned the Raw brand. So hey, plans can change in WWE. We'll have to wait and see what will go down. But yeah, those would be one of the 2 suggestions I would go down, and I think you could be on something there, noob. Next question coming from Wrestling by Waldridge asking, if there was a traditional 5-on-5 Survivor Series match between AEW and WWE, who would you pick for each team? Male and female teams, if you like. Well, with so much talent on both of those rosters, this seems almost impossible to get right. I'm sure people are going to disagree with my selections, but please let me know what teams you would pick in the comments below. But I'm going to throw them up on the screen for you right now of who I would pick, starting off with the men's Survivor Series match. As you can see, for the men's match from WWE, I've gone for Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton, and Brock Lesnar. Arguably, I'd say the top 5 in star power for WWE right now. And with AEW, I was tempted to put the Young Bucks on this team, but as I've gone for the top single stars on the WWE side, I've gone what I think overall you could say would be the same case right now for All Elite Wrestling. You've got the brand new AEW World Champion in Hangman Adam Page. You've got the former World Champion in Kenny Omega. You've got the first ever champion in Chris Jericho, and a former WWE guy, which would know how WWE ticks and does their business. CM Punk would be another one of those as well. Of course, he would be very anti-WWE, you would imagine, in this environment, and want to get one up on his former company. And then arguably the biggest rising star in All Elite Wrestling right now, of course, I'm talking about MJF, Maxwell Jacob Freeman. And I think that would be an awesome Survivor Series style match there. And I'd like to know people's comments below, not only who they would have in those matches, but looking at these matches, who do you think actually would come out on top? Because I think that's two very stacked teams there. We've got the loyalty of people that have been around for 20 years or so in WWE with the likes of Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton. I think Roman Reigns is a lifer along with Seth in WWE also. And I could be wrong, but if I had to predict, I think Drew McIntyre would be staying for the long haul as well. But when you look at All Elite Wrestling, I see those people all staying with AEW. The only one I could see ever crossing path of those people on that list there would be MJF. But hey, for the time being, he's AEW. You would argue he's under this sort of four pillars of the future of AEW, and I think he will be the next AEW World Champion. So that's why I've picked that 5-on-5, and I think that's definitely a stacked match if you ask me. Moving on to the women's match though, as you can see on your screen, and from WWE side, I think it's self-explanatory. The four horsewomen are all on one side. So we've got Becky, Big Time Bex, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, Bayley, who I know is out injured at the moment, but still would be featured on that team, and of course the biggest rising star right now in Bianca Belair, taking on the AEW team of Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, Thunder Rosa, Hikaru Shida, and then we've got Ruby Soho and Tay Conti, two former employees working with WWE. So once again, you've got people that want to get revenge on WWE in and amongst the AEW team. You've got people that have been pushing the women's division up the ranks in AEW as well, that I think will be staying there for the long term. Dr. Britt Baker, of course, there was reported interest in her from WWE at one point, and she's re-signed to stay with All Elite Wrestling, as you know, Adam Cole's gone to join her over there as well, so that could play as part of the storyline of talent are leaving to be there with them and with WWE as well. The four horsewomen seem to be the four most pushed women in the company. Bianca Belair was of course a part of a WrestleMania main event this year on night one, so yeah, again, I think this would be probably the most stacked I would pick of the rosters of who you could have there. But again, I'd be interested to know who you would have in the teams in the comments below, and of this lineup, which team do you have coming out on top? Next question comes from Martin Lorenzo Carrillo. What do you think of Xavier Kingwood's year as of now? Has he been given the credibility to go as a single star in WWE? Matches with Bobby Lashley and Roman Reigns just like the rest of the New Day. Xavier Woods, or King Woods if you want, yeah, he's probably had the best year of his history in WWE. Like I say, he's King Woods now, winning the King of the Ring. He's had, wins over Bobby Lashley. He's had matches with AJ Styles and Riddle, which were great singles matches earlier in the year, probably testing to see the water, how that would be received. And like you say, he took on Roman Reigns this past week on SmackDown. Of course, it was not the long, stellar match, but this program doesn't look finished either. I still could see this being the main event of the Day 1 pay-per-view on the 1st of January. But the question is, Xavier Woods, yeah, he's been pushed as a top star right now, and I think it's doing well. It's good to see him given this opportunity. It's just a bit annoying that you read the rumours and you see now that, you know, Xavier Woods' contract is coming up and he's not actually re-signed with the company at this point. Is this why they've given him this? And of course, as well, with the up, down, down stuff, less content being going on because of the fact that he's not been reaping the rewards and the benefits of the content and the way that channel has been grown, according to recent reports on the dirt sheet. So yeah, I mean, take it as you want, really, of how and which way it's being portrayed. But what I would say is, as someone, as a viewer, just watching Xavier Woods on TV, not really including the ideas of contracts and up, down, down, and not taking that stuff in consideration, I think Xavier Woods has had a stellar year, and it's been great watching him perform in ring. Like you're saying, he's almost on a level at the moment like Kofi and Big E are, but at the same time, I don't think he's going to get that final step to become a Universal Champion or a WWE Champion. I think his championship run is having the King of the Ring, and I think that's probably where it will stop. I think he will take on Roman Reigns, like I say, again, but I think he'll be in a losing effort. But to be still in the conversation, to be in main events of pay-per-views, I think still is fantastic. It's not something perhaps we would have predicted at the start of this year. So no, without question, Xavier Woods has had a fantastic year in the company, and I'm really enjoying his King of the Ring gimmick. I think it's been really good in the way it's been portrayed so far, and yeah, I'm interested to see where it will continue to go, and hopefully, if that contract is running up at some point down the line, I'd be quite happy to see Xavier re-sign. I'd want to see what it could do in WWE, and I hope that that push would continue, because who knows, with more time, maybe I might eat my words. Maybe he will be having a championship run just like Kofi and Big E. Next question comes from Jackknife Power Blog. What are your thoughts on the cartoon animations to promote a match on SmackDown? They did this for Hardy and Zayn and Reigns versus Woods. And they also did it as well for Jimmy Uso against Woods last week as well. I must admit, I found them quite a bit of fun. I found them quite entertaining. They've had just a little bit of layer of something for the matches when you're sort of going on, rather than just having the traditional sort of like screens that we get each and every week for every single match. So yeah, it's something a bit of character. It's something a bit different. The thing is though, it is easily overdone as well, so WWE need to pick their moments. If they did that with every match every week, I think I'd find myself finding them not standing out and it'd be kind of a bit boring very, very quickly. But from what we've seen with the last couple of weeks, I think it's worked, particularly with Woods and Reigns and Jimmy Uso, with the narrative of that story. I think that's been quite fun to see. With the Survivor Series match as well, with a team member being eliminated from that team, it's kind of good to see what the team would look like without. So yeah, it's kind of a creative, it's fun, but like I say, I hope WWE just don't overdo it. Next question comes from Mike, Tanhabs Mike. If a Dominik Mysterio turns on his dad, do you think they'll bring up Eddie Guerrero being Dominik's dad? If so, how would you book it? Could you imagine if they did that? That certainly would be interesting indeed. And of course, that throws back to the 2005 storyline having the custody ladder match back in the day. But with Eddie Guerrero no longer being with us, and if Dominik was to turn on Rey, Dominik would go heel. I don't think they want Eddie Guerrero to not be seen in anything other than a babyface legend light. So I don't think they'd go down that avenue. But you could always say that perhaps he's learnt things, or that he wishes Rey Mysterio wasn't his father. If you want to play it down that way, that could be an avenue they could go down. But I like the sort of tension and friction that they've had with these two at this point, with the fact that Rey's been sort of overly, like, you know, being a bit too critical, being a bit too harsh on Dominik, to the point where he is young, he's going to make mistakes, and to the point where Dominik now arguably wants to make up for the mistakes he's made. Therefore, he's just making, you know, careless mistakes, almost in the program we've seen with Austin Theory. So I think there will become a frustration and a breaking point, and that's where Dominik should do that. I hope it's still for not another couple of months, but obviously judging after this past week's Monday Night Raw, and of course, you know, when we see with Dominik being thrown out the Survivor Series team, I think that will cause a bit of upset and a bit of unrest as well, when probably a bit of jealousy seeing the fact that Rey is still there and not being given the opportunity to make a name for himself at a big pay-per-view like Survivor Series, because Survivor Series traditionally is where stars are born, to where they push and have a good run in the Rumble and then go on to WrestleMania. This year, the Raw team, all about Survivor Series for the men, is simply having previous champions, the tried and tested, to try and make sure that Raw wins again. That's the practice in this. And with Dominik, he's not a former world champion, but he needs to start somewhere. It's almost like trying to go for a job and saying they want experience, but you've not had the opportunity to get it. So, you know, I do see where there would be frustration from Dominik's side of this things, and I think that could play into more storytelling. But I really do hope the ultimate destination for this storyline is WrestleMania, because you've got the two-night WrestleMania, a stupendous two-night WrestleMania as well, I might add. I can't see why they couldn't have this one-on-one match on one of those 2 nights. So that's personally the destination I would have it, and for me, I wouldn't include Eddie Guerrero in this storyline if it was me. Next question comes from Retro Grade YouTube. Been ages. Yes, it has been ages, but it's great to see you again. Thanks for asking your question. Which pay-per-view would you say was worse, Heroes of Wrestling or ECW December to Dismember 2006? Well, I must admit, I've never seen Heroes of Wrestling. Now, take that as what you want. Maybe I think it's that bad that I didn't even want to take the time out to go and watch it. But for the reason of the fact I've seen it, I'm going to have to go with December to Dismember, because, I mean, that was just a badly put pay-per-view from start to finish. We only had one match promoted going into the show. We had loads of random matches that were given to us that just were not pay-per-view level whatsoever, and of course with an extreme elimination chamber match, you're expecting to see Sabu in that structure, and instead you're given Hardcore Holly as a last-minute replacement, and yes, that is as disappointing as it sounds. And of course, when then CM Punk is the flavor up-and-comer of the month with the ECW crowd, and you want to see him get that big push, he's the first one eliminated from the match. So yeah, it's just disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. I'm pretty sure it will end up being an SCW Rewind retro review at some point, particularly if I throw it in the options to be voted for, because I'm pretty sure people would want to hear a lot of negativity said about that show. So yeah, that will probably be an option given to everybody one day. But yeah, as a worst show of those, I'm going to go with that one. It's definitely one of the worst pay-per-views that I've probably seen. And around that period of WWE as well, No Way Out 2007 wasn't much better. Now, I only usually take one question per person, but it's been a while since we've had Elijah, and of course, the format has changed since the last time he's been on, so I'm going to let it slide this time. He's got 3 questions for us to finish off the show this week. Since Sami Zayn is out, who do you think WWE will be surprising us with a return if you could pick for the Survivor Series team? What do you think is going to happen on Raw this week? Any storylines of maybe a character repackage, maybe with a Elias return? And how do you feel about Jay Lethal's debut on AEW? Firstly, I was really annoyed that Sami Zayn was taken off the Survivor Series team. Now, granted, I guess as expected, Sami Zayn's contract is coming up in a matter of weeks now, and to be fair, like, if he's not re-signed with the company and he's leaving, why would you put him on one of arguably meant to be your bigger shows of the year? You could put someone else on that Survivor Series team. Now, who it's going to be that's going to replace him, I'm going to be honest, I've got no idea, but they did tease the idea of Von Wagner, who was standing right there, who they didn't name, by the way. They said, who's that big dude standing in there? So maybe he's hopefully going to be renamed if he's going to be called up already to the SmackDown roster. But for me, I would prefer to see some star power. Someone like a Sheamus, who's meant to return to SmackDown next week, would be fun to see in that spot, or maybe a Ricochet or somebody like that, someone that's a household name, someone that I know pretty well to be in that spot. Because I think if it's like a Von Wagner goes straight in on the Survivor Series team, kind of reminds me a bit like Nathan Jones back in 2003. It just kind of feels completely out of nowhere, just throwing him straight into like the big Raw versus SmackDown match, especially as he's only been on NXT 2.0 for like a number of weeks. I think there's still more for him to do down there before being called up in SmackDown, in my personal opinion. As for Raw this week, I hope that we have more build for Survivor Series. That's pretty much where I'm expecting. I'm hoping that we're going to get some form of invasion somewhere, somehow, or just calling out the shots. Perhaps Big E's annoyed at Roman Reigns for the way that, he's took out Kofi Kingston, for the way that, Xavier Woods was beaten down on SmackDown last week and Roman Reigns wearing the crown. I want to see some retaliation from Big E on this. I want to see as well something, this is more a Survivor Series, but still, as we're talking about Raw right now, Kevin Owens, he's turned heel, or has he turned heel? I'm looking forward to seeing where that dynamic's going to go, but I think the world has turned against KO, and I would like, in a way, in a dream world of Survivor Series, for KO to cost the Raw team, purely because, almost a mole kind of way, that he wants to be back on SmackDown, because ever since he went to Raw, everyone's turned on him, and no one trusts him, and he's had to almost go back to what seemed to be these old ways, and that's not what KO is anymore. When he was on SmackDown, he was liked, and he was treated well, and he didn't have any problems with any of the roster. So I want that sort of storyline to play out with KO, especially even if he is leaving WWE. I think that would be a great way to sort of have a fallout from Survivor Series for a storyline with KO going on Raw. As for Elias, I've got no idea what's going to go on with Elias. I wouldn't be surprised if he's not even brought back to TV at this point. It's been so long. It just seems to be completely dropped. If I was to pick a place of where to bring him back, and I'm pretty sure people will hate this idea, but it's the best I can think of on short notice, I would bring him in with the Happy Corbin crew, because we've got Happy Corbin, who's laughing and smiling all the time. We've got Madcap Moss, who's got probably the worst go-away heat I've ever seen, but is definitely committed to that character. You've got to give him that. If you can have Elias there with a guitar as well, playing happy tunes and stuff like that, I think that as a trio, it could be interesting. I'm not saying it's going to be amazing, but it could be interesting. It certainly would give Elias something to do at this point, rather than just bring it back. Maybe he's seen the light. He'd given up as Elias. He was losing matches, but now he's seen the ways with Happy Corbin, and Happy Corbin wants someone around playing happy music for him to listen to, and the way of happy music is to see Elias just have a bashing at the crowd of the town that they are in, because that way you sort of bring that Elias character back that we had before, but you bring in a new variation with this Happy Corbin character. Last but not least, Jay Lethal is All Elite. Now, I did a video, didn't I, not so long ago about Ring of Honor talent and where I thought they would go, and Jay Lethal, I did predict to go to All Elite Wrestling. It's arguably probably one of, not the biggest name already now, leaving Ring of Honor to go somewhere else, and I think this is going to be a big move, and I'm not surprised that he's gone to AEW. He was a part of the original All In show, and he's now going to be going for the TNT Championship against Sami Guerrero this upcoming Wednesday on Dynamite. And let's be honest here, I mean, people have not had a bad spot when they've debuted going for the TNT Championship. Look at Eddie Kingston, he's just come off a match against CM Punk on pay-per-view. You look at someone like Bobby Fish recently who done it, who's got himself a nice little spot on the AEW roster. You look at the likes of Ricky Starks as well, FTW champion, part of Team Taz. So there is definitely a good position from coming in at this point. I quite like Jay Lethal to win the championship, but Sami Guevara is not held that title for very, very long. So you'll have to wait and see how it's going to play out. But I think it's going to be a good run for Jay Lethal in All Elite Wrestling. Again, there's many great dream matches for him to have in and amongst that company. I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to bring to the table. Is he going to be squeaky clean babyface, or is he going to go more down the heel side? That will be decided, I guess, by Tony Khan, and it's something we can look forward to in the upcoming weeks. But that's all we've got time for this week anyway for AskSCW. Thank you for watching as always. If you enjoyed this video, then please like the video. Why not share with a friend and let them know SCW is here. Subscribe to the channel as well and hit the bell and turn on notifications to all, each and every time a video is released. My AEW Full Gear 2021 review is up on the channel to actually go and watch right now, so recommend you go and do so. Keep an eye as well for videos in the week. Survivor Series, the predictions will be coming to the channel. But yeah, check out these videos on the side of the screen right now. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for watching. This has been AskSCW here on YouTube. All the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care.